What began as a simple night out for a young couple turned into one of the most brutal crimes in modern American history. Channon Christian and Chris Newsom were kidnapped, tortured, and murdered in ways so cruel that even hardened detectives were left speechless. For days, their families searched in desperation, only to discover a nightmare that shook the entire nation. This isn't just another crime story. This is the most horrifying, heartbreaking, and unforgettable case you will ever watch. A story of pure evil that America still struggles to comprehend. Channon Christian was born on April 29, 1985 in Texas. At age 12, her family moved to Knoxville, Tennessee, where she quickly settled in with her parents and older brother. Channon's personality made it easy. She was outgoing, approachable, and always ready to lend a hand. Friends said she had a way of connecting with people instantly, no matter who they were. That kindness shaped her future. Channon wanted a career where she could help others, so she enrolled at the University of Tennessee to study sociology. Staying close to home mattered to her. She was deeply connected to her family, but she also wanted independence, working 2 part-time jobs to support herself while pursuing her degree. During her time at school, she met Chris Newsom, a 23-year-old carpenter. Chris had already built a strong reputation in his community for his skill and work ethic. He and Channon clicked immediately and soon began dating. By early 2007, they had been together long enough that friends and family saw them as inseparable. On January 6, 2007, the couple planned to attend a friend's birthday party. That afternoon, Channon went to another friend's apartment, where Chris was supposed to pick her up later. Running a bit late, he dropped off a different friend at the party first before heading to meet her. But as the evening went on, concern grew. The party was just a 10-minute drive away, yet neither Channon nor Chris ever showed. At first, friends assumed their plans had changed, but it was unusual. This wasn't like them. When repeated calls went unanswered, unease set in. By midnight, worry turned into action. Friends drove to the apartment complex where Channon had been waiting. In the parking lot, they spotted Chris's truck, but Channon's car was gone. They assumed the couple had simply skipped the party and went back. Around that time, Channon called her mother to say she'd be home later than expected. She and Chris had decided to spend the night together, maybe grab a bite to eat and watch a movie. She promised to be back by 3:30 a.m., but 3:30 came and went. Channon never arrived. Her mother initially thought she might have stayed over at Chris's place or with friends, but the next morning, reality hit. Channon's boss called. She hadn't shown up for work. Almost simultaneously, Chris's parents reported that he hadn't come home either. Now both families were alarmed. Their children were adults, yes, but neither had a history of disappearing without contact. Channon, especially, was reliable. She wouldn't miss work without a reason. Calls to local hospitals turned up nothing. When they went to police, they were told to wait 24 hours before filing a missing persons report. But Channon's parents weren't about to sit still. They contacted her phone company, desperate for a lead. To their surprise, the company agreed to trace her phone. Records showed Channon had checked her voicemail 3 times during the night. Then the phone went dark. The last signal came from a tower near North Cherry Street, a neighborhood notorious for crime. That discovery only deepened the fear. Why would Channon ever be in that area? It made no sense. Her family took matters into their own hands, scouring the streets themselves. Hours later, they spotted her car parked just blocks from where her phone last pinged. The moment they approached, they knew something was wrong. Her belongings were gone. Her photos, charger, everything she normally carried. The car's interior was dirty, completely out of character for Channon, who always kept it spotless. And one detail chilled them. The driver's seat had been pushed all the way back, far beyond her reach. Someone much taller had been behind the wheel. It was clear. Channon hadn't been the one driving her own car. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Your support means a lot to us and helps us grow. A huge thank you to everyone who's been watching. After the unsettling discovery of Channon's abandoned car, her parents once again called police. And this time, officers finally responded with urgency. When they examined the vehicle, what they saw was deeply disturbing. The door handles and interior surfaces had been wiped clean, as if someone had deliberately erased fingerprints. Then there was something even more suspicious: an empty, crumpled cigarette pack tossed inside. Neither Channon nor Chris smoked. The detail stood out immediately. It suggested someone else had been in that car, someone trying to cover their tracks. Investigators considered the possibility that the vehicle had been stolen, but they still had no idea where Channon or Chris were. Then, while searching more carefully, they found the first real lead. Wedged between the seats was an envelope with a handwritten address. Forensics examined it and quickly found a fingerprint. When the results came back, the match was clear. LaMarcus Davidson, a convicted felon with an extensive record. And the address written on the envelope, it was his residence, just blocks away. Detectives wasted no time. They went straight to Davidson's house. No one was home, but given the circumstances, officers had reason to believe Channon and Chris might be in immediate danger. That gave them legal grounds to enter without a warrant. The interior was in disarray, but certain details stopped them cold. On the floor were Channon's purse, her shoes, and other personal belongings. Chris's baseball cap and driver's license were also there. But the most horrifying discovery was still to come. In the kitchen, an officer lifted the lid of a trash can. Inside, wrapped in cloth and trash bags, was a human body. It was Channon. The case instantly shifted from a missing persons search to a homicide investigation. Her body was sent to the medical examiner. Now detectives had two urgent questions. Where was Chris? And where was LaMarcus Davidson? The answer to one of those questions came almost immediately. Another police department contacted investigators with a report. Nearly 2 days earlier, a railroad worker had discovered the body of an unidentified man near the tracks. At the time, no one knew who he was. But now, detectives suspected the victim might be Chris Newsom. A DNA test confirmed their worst fears. The autopsies revealed the full extent of the horror. Both Channon and Chris bore numerous injuries, cuts, and bruises. Both had been sexually assaulted. Chris had died from multiple gunshot wounds. Channon's cause of death was suffocation. Forensic evidence linked Davidson directly to the crime. Biological material recovered from Channon's body matched his DNA. His fingerprints were found on the trash bags used to wrap her remains. Inside his house, investigators also recovered spent shell casings. Ballistic testing confirmed they matched the bullets that killed Chris. With mounting evidence, detectives had no doubt. LaMarcus Davidson was directly involved in the murders. Now the investigation shifted into high gear with one mission: track him down before he could vanish. Investigators pulled LaMarcus Davidson's cell phone records and quickly discovered he had been in frequent contact with a man named Eric in the days following Channon and Chris's disappearance. It didn't take long to track Eric down. At first, he denied knowing where LaMarcus was. But when detectives laid out the gravity of the crimes and warned that he could face charges as an accomplice, Eric cracked. He admitted that LaMarcus had been hiding in a vacant house listed for sale. He also confessed that on the very night Channon and Chris vanished, the two of them had robbed that same property. Police rushed to the location. Inside, they found LaMarcus surrounded by trash and empty food containers, clutching a gun. One detail chilled them even more. He was wearing Chris's sneakers. Taken into custody, LaMarcus began spinning stories. He flatly denied involvement, then shifted his narrative again and again, 5 different versions in total. First, he claimed ignorance. Then, that someone else had kidnapped the couple. Later, he insisted he had only borrowed their car to sell drugs. Each statement contradicted the last. He never confessed, but his shifting accounts offered detectives something valuable: confirmation that others were likely involved. LaMarcus pointed to his half-brother, Latalvis, and their friend George as the real killers. Detectives quickly tracked both men down and brought them in, along with Eric, who was now firmly on their radar as an accomplice. The circle widened again. Investigators uncovered a 5th suspect, 18-year-old Vanessa. She too was taken into custody. One by one, the suspects began to turn on each other. None wanted to shoulder the blame, but together their stories and the growing mountain of forensic evidence allowed detectives to piece together what happened that night. LaMarcus emerged as the ringleader. He was a drug dealer, and that night his goal was simple: steal a car for deliveries. He gathered 3 accomplices and Vanessa, and they set out to find a target. Their opportunity came at the same apartment complex where Channon had been waiting for Chris. They spotted her SUV, with Channon inside and Chris standing nearby. What began as a plan to steal a vehicle escalated into something far darker. At gunpoint, they forced the couple into the car and drove them to LaMarcus's house. There, the nightmare unfolded. DNA evidence later confirmed that both LaMarcus and Latalvis sexually assaulted the victims. For hours, Channon and Chris were subjected to brutal abuse, humiliation, and torture. By early morning, the attackers dragged Chris to the nearby railroad tracks. He was shot multiple times and left to die. The group then returned to the house, where Channon's torment continued. She remained alive for nearly 2 full days while her family and friends were already searching desperately for her. In the end, they suffocated her. Her body was stuffed into a trash can in Davidson's kitchen, hidden in plain sight, until police uncovered the truth. Investigators soon uncovered even more damning details. LaMarcus hadn't just stolen Chris's sneakers. He also took Chris's phone and several of Channon's personal belongings, items he later gifted to his girlfriend as if they were trophies. Vanessa, meanwhile, tried to portray herself as an unwilling participant. She told police she had been forced to stay at the house against her will. But when investigators searched her home, they found a diary that told a very different story. In it, Vanessa described the night as a wild adventure and admitted she had enjoyed the experience. In the end, all 5 suspects were hit with lengthy lists of charges. Prosecutors began preparing for trial, but the process was long and complicated. More than 2 years passed before the first case reached the courtroom. During that time, defense attorneys successfully argued that the trial should be moved out of Knoxville. The city had been gripped by outrage since the murders, and the defense insisted their clients could never receive a fair trial there. Ultimately, the court agreed, and the venue was changed. The first defendant to face a jury was Eric. While investigators never found direct evidence that he participated in the murders, they did uncover proof that he knew exactly what was happening. That was enough to secure a conviction. He received the maximum penalty available for his charges, 18 years in prison. Then came the trials of Lamarcus, Latalvis, and George. Their attorneys attempted a desperate strategy, claiming that Channon and Chris had somehow willingly taken part in the abuse. The jury dismissed the argument outright. All three men were convicted. Lamarcus received a death sentence, while Latalvis and George were sentenced to life in prison. Vanessa's case was more complicated. Initially, she had been granted immunity in exchange for testifying against the others. But the court later ruled that her deal only covered the carjacking charges, not the murder and sexual assault. As a result, she was prosecuted as well. Ultimately, Vanessa was convicted and sentenced to 53 years behind bars. By the time the verdicts were handed down, it seemed that justice had finally been served. But in 2011, the case took a shocking turn. The judge who had presided over all 5 trials resigned in disgrace after revelations surfaced that he had been having an affair with a court employee and purchasing illegal drugs from criminals. Because of the scandal, a higher court decided to review many of his cases, including those of Lamarcus, Latalvis, George, and Vanessa. The news ignited outrage in Knoxville. Families of the victims feared the killers might escape their original sentences. In the end, prosecutors successfully upheld the convictions and sentences of Lamarcus and Latalvis. But George and Vanessa were granted new trials, another painful chapter in a case that had already horrified the community. At her retrial, Vanessa was once again convicted on the same charges. But this time, her sentence was reduced from 53 years down to 35. George also received a lighter outcome, his new sentence making him eligible for parole after serving 51 years. Yet while their punishments were lessened, the retrials had unexpected consequences that swung the other way. During the new proceedings, prosecutors uncovered powerful evidence implicating Eric more deeply than before. It became clear he had played an active role in the torture and murders. In 2019, Eric was indicted again, this time facing charges far more severe than his original case. He was sentenced to life in prison plus an additional 90 years. From an 18-year term to what is effectively a permanent sentence, Eric's fate was sealed. Vanessa, however, became eligible for parole after serving just 7 years. So far, every one of her requests has been denied. She remains in prison. Despite delays, retrials, and legal twists, all of those responsible for the murders of Channon Christian and Chris Newsom were ultimately held accountable. Still, many observers, and many in Knoxville, believed that every one of them should have faced the death penalty. The crime did more than devastate 2 families. It shocked Knoxville, and it horrified the entire country. The brutality was almost beyond comprehension. In the years that followed, the house where the nightmare unfolded was torn down. In its place, a memorial was built in honor of Channon and Chris. The University of Tennessee also created scholarships in their memory, ensuring their names would live on through the opportunities given to future students. And as for Lamarcus Davidson, the ringleader, his death sentence has yet to be carried out. Nearly 20 years later, he remains on death row, a grim reminder of a crime that still casts a shadow. Be sure to let us know what you think of the story in the comments below. And if you like this video, smash the like button and don't forget to subscribe. A playlist is going to pop up right now with more videos you'll love. See you guys next time.